It is really funny how we interact with the houses we live in. I mean, we obsess over the landscaping. We upgrade to these brilliant smart thermostats who carefully clean out the gutters every fall.
Right. The highly visible stuff.
Exactly. But then there's this one massive feature, like the absolute largest and heaviest moving object in your entire home, and we treat it like it is completely invisible, right up until the moment it, well, traps our car inside.
Oh, yeah. It is the ultimate blind spot in home ownership.
It totally is. I'm talking, of course, about the silent giant in your driveway,
Oh,
your
yeah.
garage door.
The one thing you expect to just work.
Right. Picture this. You are packed for a highly anticipated vacation. The whole family is buckled into the car. You hit the button on your visor, and nothing.
Just that awful groaning sound.
Yeah, exactly. Just a pathetic, straining groan from the ceiling. The door does not budge, and you are officially trapped. So today, we're doing a deep dive into a stack of briefing documents, explanatory articles, and maintenance methodologies, all provided by LMS Garage Doors.
A really trusted local expert based out of Citrus Heights, California.
Yep. And we're going to use their insights to completely change how you view this part of your property. Our mission today is to help you transition from being a reactive homeowner to a proactive property steward.
Which is a huge mental shift.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because making that shift is going to save you from massive, unexpected bills and some genuinely severe safety hazards.
It really requires a total paradigm shift. I mean, most people look at their garage door and they just see, a magical wall.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
The magical wall illusion.
Yeah.
You push a button, the wall magically goes up. You push it again, it magically goes down. And as long as the magic happens, we just ignore everything else.
Which is a huge mistake.
Right, because treating it like a magic wall is dangerous. It is actually a lot more like driving a car. Like if you are driving down the highway and you hear a weird rhythmic squeak in the engine, you don't just turn up the radio and ignore it.
Well, hopefully you don't.
Right, because the car is still moving forward, but you know that ignoring a tiny squeak in an engine can eventually cause the whole transmission to lock up.
Exactly.
So, I have to ask you, the listener, have you ever ignored a squeaky roller or a shuddering noise in your garage just because the door still managed to open?
It is a question that usually makes people squirm, honestly, because the answer is almost universally yes.
Yeah, totally.
And it is completely understandable why.
Yeah.
I mean, we're conditioned to think in a very binary way about our home fixtures. Like a light bulb is either on or it is burned out. A pipe is holding water or it is leaking.
Right, it works or it doesn't.
Exactly. But a garage door doesn't work like that. We're talking about a literal ton of steel, wood, and glass hanging directly over your head and over your family's vehicles.
Which is terrifying when you put it like that.
It is. The stakes are infinitely higher than a leaky faucet. So we're going to look at the massive financial delta between a $200 proactive maintenance check and a $2,500 total system collapse.
Wow, that is a huge jump.
It really comes down to the dangers of neglect and what we call the stupid tax.
The stupid tax. I mean, that is a harsh term, but I want to push back on it a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Let's say I pull into my driveway, I press the button, and the door goes up. It is a little loud, maybe it shudders a bit, but hey, it opens. Why on earth should I spend $200 for a professional to look at a door that is technically still doing its job?
Right, the if it ain't broke mentality.
Yeah, exactly. It is incredibly easy to just assume it is fine. Honestly, it feels like throwing money away to fix something that isn't totally broken yet.
I hear that constantly. But what's fascinating here is that what you are seeing on the outside, the smooth, albeit noisy, movement of the door, is actually masking the physics of what is happening on the inside.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Underneath that exterior, invisible mechanical stress is accumulated every single time you open and close that door. You have to stop looking at the garage door as a single monolithic unit.
It's not just a door.
No, not at all. It is a high-tension ecosystem.
A high-tension ecosystem. Let's define that because it sounds like a buzzword. But the documents we are looking at are very specific about what that means.
They are, yeah.
We are talking about the linkage between the tracks, the rollers, the steel lift cables, the heavy-duty springs, and the electronic motor on the ceiling, all of it working together.
Precisely. I mean, in any ecosystem, biological or mechanical, the health of one part directly dictates the survival of another.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so when one minor component in that linkage starts to wear down, it does not just fail in isolation. It physically shifts its burden onto another part of the system.
Okay, so this mechanical ecosystem doesn't just spontaneously explode all at once.
No, definitely not.
If I am understanding this correctly, the financial collapse we talked about, that $2,500 bill, happens in a specific, predictable sequence.
It is a highly calculated path of destruction, really. It is a chain reaction of systemic failure.
So it builds up over time.
Exactly. And tracking how this happens is crucial because it explains how a tiny $20 piece of hardware eventually destroys a $600 electronic motor.
Wait, seriously. So if the track is dragging or a roller gets stuck, that means the rest of the system has to pull harder to compensate.
You nailed it.
I imagine that wears the metal out incredibly fast. Let's trace this exact sequence. How does that domino effect actually play out?
It happens in 4 distinct phases. Phase 1 is what we call the $20 friction point.
The $20 friction point, got it.
This is where the destruction begins, and it starts in the tracks and the rollers. Over time, these small parts lose their lubrication. Dust, dirt, and changing temperatures cause the grease to just dry up.
Oh, so they just get bone dry.
Yeah, or the metal tracks might fall slightly out of alignment due to the constant vibrations of the door. When this happens, the rollers stop spinning smoothly and start dragging against the metal track.
So instead of a smooth glide, we are generating physical friction and sheet that creates drag.
Exactly.
Ah.
The door is no longer weightless in its movement. It is actively resisting being pulled up.
Which sounds like a nightmare for whatever is pulling it.
It is. And that brings us to phase 2, the counterbalance strain. Because of that friction, the high-tension springs suddenly have to work exponentially harder.
Let's pause here and talk about the physics of those springs, because the documents dive deep into this.
Oh, they are fascinating.
Right. I mean, we're not talking about a slinky or rubber band that just stretches up and down.
Yeah.
We're talking about torsion springs.
Right. Most modern garage doors use a torsion spring system. It is a thick, tightly coiled steel spring mounted on a metal shaft directly above the door.
Okay, so it sits right up top.
Yeah. And when the door is closed, that spring is wound incredibly tight, storing a massive amount of rotational energy. We are talking thousands of pounds of torque.
Thousands of pounds. That is insane.
It is a lot of stored energy. When you open the door, the spring unwinds, releasing that rotational energy to lift the sheer weight of the door panels.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So when the rollers are dragging in phase 1, that torsion spring has to hold its tension longer and twist even harder to overcome the friction in the tracks.
Precisely. It is fighting against the drag. And, well, steel can only endure so much twisting before it suffers from metal fatigue.
It starts to give out.
Yeah, microfractures begin to form in the coils, which leads directly to phase 3, the deadweight phase.
Oh, that sounds bad.
It is. Those overworked, fatigued springs can only take so much extra strain before the steel physically shears apart.
Just snaps entirely.
Yep. And when a torsion spring snaps, it releases all that pent-up kinetic energy at once. It is usually accompanied by a violently loud, terrifying bang that sounds like a shotgun going off in your garage.
Wow. And when that happens, the entire physics of the door changes instantly. The counterbalance is just gone.
Completely gone. The garage door is no longer weight neutral. It instantly becomes 300 pounds of absolute dead weight sitting on the ground.
Wow. Okay, so the door is just sitting there, incredibly heavy.
Very heavy.
But let's say I am inside the car, right? I hear the bang, but I still have the electric opener on the ceiling. I just press the visor button to force it open anyway, right?
And that instinct is exactly what triggers phase 4, which we call the brain burnout.
Ah, the brain burnout. This is where it gets expensive.
This is where the $2,500 mistake happens. The opener motor, that expensive piece of technology mounted on your ceiling, is the brain of the ecosystem.
Okay.
It is designed solely to guide a perfectly balanced weight-neutral door along its path. It is not a heavy-duty winch.
Oh, I see. Think of the motor as the steering wheel and the torsion springs as the gas pedal.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the motor just tells the door where to go and when to stop, but the springs provide all the actual horsepower.
That is the perfect analogy. So when the springs snap and you press that button, the motor is suddenly forced to try and deadlift 300 pounds all by itself.
Which it is definitely not built to do.
Not at all. Modern openers have plastic internal gears as a safety feature. When the motor tries to lift that dead weight, those plastic gears completely strip out.
Yikes.
Yeah. The motor overloads, and you will often smell that acrid, burning ozone scent of electrical wiring frying. The motor just burns out entirely.
So by ignoring a squeaky $20 roller in phase one, you generate friction, which fatigues the spring, causing it to snap, turning the door into dead weight, which immediately fries the expensive motor when you try to open it.
That is the sequence, yes.
That is a terrifyingly logical path of destruction.
It is systemic failure.
Uh,
And the crazy part is, it is entirely preventable if you catch it early.
which brings us to the solution. Now that we understand the mechanics of this ecosystem, we need to know how to stop those dominoes from falling.
Right, how to break the chain.
Yeah. The sources we are looking at from LMS Garage Doors outline a proactive property stewardship methodology. They suggest a warning sign audit.
Which is super important.
But I have to be honest here. A weekly audit. Look, that sounds great on paper, but realistically, nobody is inspecting their garage door every Saturday morning before they have their coffee.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I barely remember to take the trash out on Tuesdays. What is the absolute bare minimum a busy homeowner needs to look out for to catch this at phase one?
That is fair. If a dedicated weekly inspection isn't realistic, you need to make it an active observation every single time you pull into the driveway.
Just paying attention, basically.
Exactly. You are the one interacting with that door every day, so you are the only one who can catch this before it breaks. You need to use your eyes and your ears. Let's start with the visual cues, specifically looking at those heavy lifting springs above the door.
The documents mention looking for a visible gap in the metal coils.
Yes, because the spring is under such immense tension, when the steel finally fatigues and breaks, the two halves violently pull away from each other.
So it's pretty obvious.
Oh yeah, you will see a stark 2-inch gap right in the middle of the coiled spring. That means the counterbalance is completely compromised.
Okay, what else are we looking for?
You should also look at the steel lift cables on the sides of the door. Do you see any fraying or unwound wires?
Like a frayed rope.
Exactly. Those cables are what the spring uses to physically hoist the door panels. If they are frayed, they are ready to snap.
Okay, so visually, we are checking the springs for a 2-inch gap and checking the cables for fraying. What about the auditory cues?
The sounds are just as important.
We talked about the loud bang when a spring snaps, but what are the early warning sounds, the ones before the explosion?
You are listening for changes in the ecosystem's baseline sound. A healthy door has a consistent low hum.
Okay, a low hum is good.
Right. But if you start hearing a distinct metal-on-metal scraping sound or high-pitched squeaks as the door moves through the curve of the track, that is the phase one friction we talked about.
That means your rollers are dragging.
Exactly. And if you hear persistent clicking or an aggressive grinding noise from the motor on the ceiling, that means the gears are already starting to strip because it is pulling too much weight.
Oh, man. The manual lift test is also mentioned here as a great diagnostic tool.
It is the best way to check the health of your springs.
How's that work?
Well, you pull the red emergency release cord to disconnect the door from the electronic motor, then try to lift the door by hand.
Lift it yourself.
Yeah. A properly tensioned, healthy door should glide up easily with one hand and stay perfectly suspended in place if you let go halfway up.
And if it doesn't?
If it feels like you are trying to deadlift a boulder, your springs have lost their tension and are failing.
So let's say I do this manual lift test and the door is incredibly heavy. Or I look up and I see that 2-inch gap in the spring.
Okay.
I am pretty handy around the house. I can fix a leaky pipe under the sink. I can just grab some heavy-duty wrenches, climb up a ladder, and tighten that spring back up myself, right?
Absolutely not. And I really cannot stress the physics of this enough. Under no circumstances should a homeowner ever attempt DIY repairs on torsion springs.
Really?
Never. Never. We are talking about parts that store thousands of pounds of kinetic energy. They're essentially coiled bombs if mishandled.
That is terrifying.
It is. If you use the wrong tool, or if a wrench slips by even a fraction of an inch, the spring releases all that rotational energy instantly. It can shatter a ladder, break an arm, or cause genuinely life-threatening blunt force trauma.
That is incredibly sobering. Because those springs are basically kinetic bombs, standard handymen usually won't touch them either. Or worse, they will try to touch them and end up causing a catastrophic accident.
Exactly, which is why you have to leave the thousands of pounds of torque to the absolute pros. If we connect this to the bigger picture, professional intervention here isn't an upsell or a convenience. It is a non-negotiable requirement for your physical safety.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
It is about structural integrity and ensuring that your home's primary gateway doesn't become a dangerous liability.
Which naturally brings us to who you actually call when you spot these warning signs. Because of the extreme safety risks we just discussed, the briefing documents we are diving into highlight the necessity of specialized local intervention.
Yes, absolutely.
This is where LMS garage doors serves as a perfect case study in why you need a specialist rather than a generalist.
For sure. LMS Garage Doors is headquartered right at 8084 Old Auburn Road in Citrus Heights, California.
But they cover a pretty wide area, right?
Oh, their service footprint is huge. They cover Sacramento, Placer, and El Dorado counties. So if you are in Folsom, Roseville, Fair Oaks, or Granite Bay, they are your local experts.
And looking at their background, it is easy to see why they are the gold standard for this kind of high-tension mechanical work.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, they have been in the business for over 20 years, and they have 505 excellent reviews.
Which is practically unheard of.
Yeah, in the home service industry, maintaining that kind of rating is incredibly hard unless your methodology is flawless. And they offer 24/7 emergency services, too.
Right, which is crucial when your car is trapped.
But what really stands out to me is their approach to the repair itself. They don't just show up, slap some grease on a track, hand you a bill, and leave.
No, not at all. They prioritize proactive education, which is exactly what we have been talking about today.
Which is so refreshing.
It is. They actually walk their customers through the ecosystem, teaching them the warning signs so they can prevent future emergencies. It is a real partnership with the homeowner.
So what does this all mean? Like, if I find a frayed cable or hear that grinding noise today, I could call the guy down the street who advertises himself as a generic handyman, or I could call the specialists at LMS. What is the actual mechanical difference in the service we provide?
Why is the specialist required?
Yeah, exactly.
It comes down to calibration, safety protocols, and electronic troubleshooting. I mean, a generic handyman might be great at patching drywall or fixing a fence, but a garage door is a highly specialized piece of machinery.
Right, it is that high-tension ecosystem.
Exactly. LMS technicians adhere to rigorous safety standards designed to disarm and replace those kinetic springs without risking your property.
Which we know is super dangerous.
Extremely. Furthermore, calibrating new high-tension springs requires specialized winding bars and a deep understanding of weight distribution that a general handyman simply does not possess.
So it's not just twisting a wrench.
Oh, no. If a spring is wound even 1/4 turn too tight, the door won't close properly. And dealing with the modern opener isn't just a mechanical fix. It involves complex electronic troubleshooting of the safety sensors and the internal logic board.
Wow, it really makes sense. It is the difference between going to a general practitioner for a minor cough versus going to a neurosurgeon for a brain issue.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, when you are dealing with thousands of pounds of torque hanging over your car, you want the neurosurgeon. You want the team that focuses entirely on this specific complex machinery day in and day out.
Exactly. A botched DIY or handyman attempt almost always makes the problem worse and infinitely more dangerous.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's recap this journey.
Let's do it.
We started by revealing the garage door as the silent giant of your home, a literal ton of steel and wood that operates on the illusion of being a magic wall.
Which it definitely is not.
No. We broke down the physics of the high-tension ecosystem, learning that relying on a reactive break-fix mentality triggers a disastrous chain reaction.
A very expensive one.
Yeah. A $20 unlubricated roller creates friction, which forces your torsion springs to work harder, eventually causing the steel to fatigue and snap with a violent bang. This turns your door into 300 pounds of dead weight, which instantly strips the gears and burns out your $600 motor.
Which results in that huge bill.
Yep, resulting in a completely avoidable $2,500 stupid tax.
But we also learned how to stop that chain reaction by taking ownership.
Which is the most important part.
Yeah, by actively using your eyes and ears every time you pull into the garage. Looking for frayed cables, spotting that 2-inch gap in a broken spring, and listening for the metal-on-metal scraping or motor grinding that indicates the ecosystem is failing.
So here is your call to action. As soon as you finish listening to this deep dive, step out into your garage, do a quick visual and auditory check.
Seriously, do it today.
Pull the red cord and see how heavy the door actually feels when you lift it manually. Look closely at the steel cables. If you see fraying, if you hear that harsh grinding, or if you spot a gap in the spring, do not grab a wrench.
Please do not grab a wrench.
Do not try to be a hero. You need to contact the specialists at LMS Garage Doors immediately. You can reach them directly by phone at 916-899-2333. Again, that is 916-899-2333.
Or check them out online.
Yes, you can visit their website to learn more about their maintenance methodology at lmsgaragedoors.com/garage door maintenance. I also highly encourage you to search for their Google business profile to read through those 505 excellent reviews and see their stellar local reputation for yourself.
It's really impressive.
It is. Whether you are in Citrus Heights, Folsom, Roseville, or the greater Sacramento area, they are the clear choice for protecting your home's largest moving part.
This raises an important question, though. We have spent all this time analyzing how a massive, highly visible structure, like a garage door, is actually a delicate, interconnected, high-tension ecosystem.
Right.
It is a system that secretly operates on borrowed time, just waiting for a tiny $20 component to fail and bring the whole thing crashing down.
So true.
So I want to leave you with this thought. What other silent giants or invisible interconnected systems in your daily life, your business, or even your personal habits are currently accumulating hidden mechanical stress, just waiting for their own $20 part to finally break?